as far as powerlifting, because I am a powerlifter too, believe it or not, Tony, I powerlifting. You put me in there. So where do you see like the sport of powerlifting going right now? Because the rise of Raw, has surpassed geared and all of that. Where do you see it now because of YouTube and all that? Do you think it's gonna last? You think it's gonna grow? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's going to grow. It's grown the most, thankfully, because of CrossFit. CrossFit has brought so many people, especially female athletes, to the sport, and has helped it grow tremendously. I think it'll continue to grow because there's such an easier, there's no barrier to entry. Like anyone can do it, which is a good and a bad thing, because you do have a lot of people who will do their first meet and they'll never compete again, which is. It is what it is, right? Like you'll have that in any sport.
Same with fighting.
Yeah, exactly. There's probably a higher attrition rate in fighting than there is in powerlifting.
For sure.
But with the rise in popularity, you'll have a lot of people who are doing it for the wrong reasons. They're doing it just because they want to post stuff on Instagram to get that instant validation. And that is what it is. That's part of the sport. That's part of people's personalities. But I think as the sport grows, you're going to get more and more freaks that are doing some crazy weights. Like there's people lifting. I mean, there's this guy, Yuri Belkin, at 220 pounds, almost squatted 1,000 pounds, which, if you would have said that, ain't like
with no suit on. I think it was
just wraps.
Wraps? Yeah.
Just wraps. So there's people that are getting ridiculously strong, and as it grows, the genetic population is going to get better and better, and you're going to see a rise in that. The biggest problem is that there's just so much non-continuity within the sport. There's, I think there's over 200 federations you can compete in. There's no legitimacy really to records, to the, kind of like in MMA, right? Where it's like judging is it's so new that the judges don't really understand the judging criteria. You have judges that have never done MMA before, which is so bizarre to me. But there's the standards are very much like wishy-washy. And that's the same thing in powerlifting. There's the rule books are all the same, but the standards conducted for each federation is completely different. You'll have somebody break a squat record that's like 4 inches high, and should have never broke it. So that's always going to be an issue, I think. But I think because the barrier of entry is so low, and then we have some great ambassadors like Steffi Cohen for the females, and then for the guys, you have John Hack, you have Dan Green, you have some guys that are legends in the sport, and people look up to them, and a lot of it is because they're not like the fat powerlifters that they used to be. They're in really good shape. So people can be like, oh, I can be strong and be in shape at the same time. I'll just do that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, I think a lot of it has to do with body composition, believe it or not,
Oh, for sure.
Everybody wants to look good and be strong at the same time. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that makes a lot of sense. And I do see that now, like, and you're looking back at it, looking at like the old tapes of like West Side and looking at those guys lift. I mean, they were lifting crazy weight, but again, their bellies, stuck out further than,
Right. They're big.
So, yeah. But
that was advantageous for their sport, because when you have gear on, you try to get as big as you can in the smallest amount of gear. So if you have a bunch of muscle, it doesn't really create those leverages that you want to be as strong as possible. If you have a gut, you can plop that thing in that suit, man, and you can get like 400 pounds out of that suit. And it's like, okay, now let me just gain 10 more pounds. See what I can get out of that. Let me gain 10 more pounds. It's like, well, now, and if we're all lifting, it's like all based on, your muscles, your connective structure that's holding you together. You don't have these suits anymore. So you got to have as much muscle as possible.
Yeah. For the people that don't know, what is geared lifting? Just give them like a rundown.
So geared lifting it was popular in the early 2000s, late 90s. And all it is just, it was invented as supportive equipment to help people not succumb to injuries. So it's the supportive shirts and the supportive squat suits that as you have the weight in your hand or on your back and you start to lower it, it creates a spring, so to speak, a spring type action. So the lower you go, the more torque it creates. And then as you touch your chest, it kind of springs you off. And what it was done for was to save your shoulders from getting beat up and things of that nature. And then, as you know, like if something's made for support, it's like, oh, but I can get like 20 pounds of it. Well, how much can I, like, what can I do to get 50? What can we make to get 100 and then 200? And there's the, you know, you have some guys who can bench press 400 pounds raw. They put on a shirt, they're benching 700, 800 pounds, you know, so.
The shirts nowadays are crazy, man.
Yeah. So it's just supportive equipment that allows you to lift more weight. Mm-hmm. It's a completely different sport. I just call it a different sport than raw lifting, because it's a lot of technical things that go into it. So I have a ton of respect for it. But it's just a different sport.
Have you ever done it? Have you ever competed?
Fuck no, man.
I heard it takes like 20 minutes to just get into the suit.
Dude, I'm not going to have a bunch of fat dudes putting me in a suit and squishing me in that. Man. You know, yeah, you're right. It takes like 30, 45 minutes. You got these fat, slobbery guys lifting you up and stuffing you into this suit, sweating all over you. No, never. Mainly, and another reason too is because you got to have a significant crew, you know, at your gym. You got to have side spotters and a back spotter and a lift off guy, and you know it's a lot of work. So it's just not. And then it's dying. I think there's like only 200 geared lifters in the entire sport now.
Yeah. I mean, I think the only one that anybody really knows is obviously Hoff, right? Dave Hoff. And
right.
That, I mean, I actually met him at Elite too while I was up there. But I was like, man, that, like, honestly, he's like, this is like the last of the Mohicans, like the dying breed right there. He's right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's good to look at it from that perspective. The guy is strong still, no matter what. Take the gear off and he's still strong. And a lot of those 100%. Guys are. Some you get a shit ton out of the gear, but for the most part, back in the day, like with Matt Winning and those guys, they took the gear off and they were still strong, which is, you know.
For sure, 100%. Yeah.